Hi folks, here we are at Unit 7, the cell cycle, mitosis and meiosis review. On your version, I didn't realize till later that you're missing the A, B, and C on the diagram, so you might want to add those in, and then you should be able to answer those questions. And I'm going to zoom on down to our multiple choice. Here we go. What is the correct sequence for the plant cell mitosis? So hopefully you know what interphase would look like, because that's of course the first one. You can always tell interphase because you have a full and solid nucleus there that is clearly seen and not falling apart. So if you look at C, you can clearly see the nucleus within there, that it is together. You can't see any of the DNA coiled up yet. You can even see the nucleolus. So C will be your starting one, which right away gives you your answer that it must be B. But from C, interphase, we would go into prophase. Prophase is when your DNA starts to condense, your spindle fibers are forming, and your nucleus may be starting to go away. So that looks like B, where you can clearly see your chromosomes, and you have your little spindles forming up here in the corner. But your nucleus isn't quite gone yet in this form of prophase, because remember, this is actually a continuous process. After prophase comes metaphase. They don't actually have a picture of metaphase here, but they do have the next step, anaphase, where they're being pulled apart. So there's anaphase, and then telophase. In plant cells, you form a cell plate, which is what you see forming right there, which will turn into a cell wall, and you'd actually have two cells at that point. All right, so B should be your answer. The reduction of chromosome number during meiosis, remember meiosis is making sex cells, is most important for A, preventing the nucleus from becoming larger with each cell division. Well, that does not happen. All right, B, maintaining the chromosome number during sexual reproduction. Well, yeah, we talked about the fact that your sex cells have half the number of chromosomes, and so half in the sperm and half in the egg. When they come back together, you land up at your normal diploid number of chromosomes. So just in case, let's look at the other answers. Keeping the amount of DNA in the cell at a minimum level. Now, you don't want your DNA at a minimum level. You need the amount of DNA you normally have. All right, and then D, allowing the growth of the cell without increasing DNA content. Well, you're not trying to increase your DNA content anyways, but your cell size should also stay the same. It only grows during interphase right before it splits. So yes, the correct answer should be B, maintaining your chromosome number. 3, look at the chart of human chromosomes. This is called a karyotype. What information is in a karyotype? Well, one of the things that you can see is if you're normal or not, right? If you're normal, you should have 2 of each kind of chromosomes. We have 23 kinds of chromosomes, so for humans, 46 chromosomes. And the other thing you can tell there is whether you are a male or female. So this particular one has 2 X's, which tells you it is a female. So they don't have whether there's a disorder on here, but your sex, they sure can. You could tell if there's a trisomy, but this individual does not have one. So from this karyotype, you definitely could not tell that. And the age, nope, can't tell how old they are or which genes are dominant. Can't look at that from a karyotype. Number 4, external sources such as radiation and chemicals can cause mutations in chromosomes. In order to pass along these mutations, they must occur on. Well, you got to think about how do you make babies to pass them on? You got to use sex cells, all right? If it occurs in your bone cells or your muscle cells, or your brain cells, that doesn't get passed on to your kids. That just unfortunately stays with you, those mutations. But if you have a mutation in your sex cells, then of course it can have effects. And remember, especially as a female, your sex cells are inside you your entire life. So all those bad choices that you may or may not make, they do affect those cells. Which phase of mitosis would be seen next? So first you need to know what phase this one is, and you can see the chromosomes are lined up in the middle. So middle is metaphase, and if you know PMAT, prophase, metaphase, anaphase. So the next thing that happens is these guys get ripped apart and pulled to separate ends, and so that should be C, is anaphase. And just to go over, A is probably prophase because your spindle is forming. All right, B is probably interphase because here no spindle, you have a full nucleus, nothing's really happening. And D would be telophase where you almost have 2 cells and you got that cleavage furrow starting where it pinches in the middle there. Number 6, the process of DNA replication is necessary before a cell. Well, why would you need to copy your DNA? Because what are you going to make? You're going to make 2 new cells, right? So the answer is C, divides. You got to copy that DNA before you divide. And that happens in the S phase of interphase, which is a phase of mitosis. So mitosis is PMAT. So which one of these is PMAT? Well, that's going to be C, anaphase. G1 is the first part of interphase. S is the second part, and then you would have G2. And so those are all interphase. And interphase is not part of mitosis, only PMAT. It occurs before it. Which type of cells are considered diploid? Diploid is when they have a full set of chromosomes. So hopefully you could figure this out by process of elimination, if nothing else. Egg cells and sperm cells are sex cells. Hopefully you know that. So because all 3 of those things are the same thing, they're probably not the answer. And so the answer is a somatic cell, which is a fancy way of saying your body cells. Number 9, the diagram to the right, this one right here, shows mitotic cell division. So you're doing mitosis. If the daughter cells have 16, how many chromosomes are in the parent cell? Well, if you're doing mitosis, you're making body cells. And if you're making new body cells, you want them to be the same as the original body cell. So these 2 daughter cells that have 16 should be the same as the parent cell. The parent cell should also have 16. The only cells in your body that don't have the same number of chromosomes are sex cells, which are made by meiosis, not mitosis. Looking at 10, students were learning about reproduction cycles. Which cycle produces 2 new identical cells? So you're only making 2, and they're the same, and you could use the previous question as a clue. That's mitosis, all right? Meiosis is me is sexy. That's your sex cells. They are not going to be identical. Everyone's different, and that's why you're different from your brothers and sisters. Number 11, use the diagram. Which letter depicts prophase? So you need to know what happens in prophase. Prophase, your DNA coils, your spindle forms, and your nucleus degrades. So if you look at A, in A, you don't have any spindle forming. You have a full nucleus and you can't see any of the DNA. When you look at B, you got some spindles forming here. You can start to see your DNA. And this little dotty line here, I think, is your nucleus going away. But if we're not sure, looking at C, there's no nucleus already there and your chromosomes are in the middle. That's metaphase, which gives us the answer to 12. D is when they pulled apart. That's anaphase. And the last one, this is telophase, where you got the cleavage furrow forming. Again, you almost have 2 cells. After that, you would do cytokinesis. So 11 should be B, and 12, which I already gave you the answer to, is going to be also B, metaphase. 13, which process is being shown in the figure? So we got to figure out what is going on here. And actually, the figure tells you the answer somewhere on here. It says meiosis 1 right on it. But you could tell that anyways, because how many daughter cells are you making? You're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4 daughter cells. And the only one that makes 4 is meiosis. Binary fission, well, binary fusion is not even a thing. Binary fission would be bacteria. Reproduction is when you add the sperm and the egg together, when you have fertilization. So meiosis is making your sex cells for reproduction. All right, 14. During which phase of mitosis do chromosomes pull away? So hopefully you know that when they separate after they've been in the middle is anaphase. What are the stages of mitosis in order? That's your PMAT. So you should have selected B. What is not a possible product of meiosis? So remember, me is sexy. So these are your sex cells. So when we're talking about sex cells, hopefully you know sperm and egg are for sure them. So then you're between polar bodies and diploid cells. Well, if your sperm and egg are haploid, you're not making diploid cells. Polar bodies are when we make our egg, because remember we get 1 huge big egg and then 3 little duds. Those little duds are the polar bodies. All right, 17, the table below depicts different types of cell division. Which one is undergoing meiosis? So remember, meiosis is me is sexy. These are making your sex cells, and your sex cells have half the number of chromosomes, because half in the sperm, half in the egg equals 1 whole baby. So if you're looking at the parent cell, whatever cell's being made should have half. So that's not going to be 1. Not going to be 1. Not going to be 2. Looking at 3, we go from 14 to 7. That one's the 1. So you should have picked 3. 18, during meiosis, homologous chromosomes, remember homo means the same, so these are the chromosomes that have the same size, same shape, same traits. When they exchange DNA, what they're doing is C, crossing over, right? Like crossing your legs. Pieces fall off and reattach. 19, during meiosis, how many haploid daughter cells are produced? Making your sex cells, and you're dividing twice, PMAT1 and then PMAT2. So you get twice as many cells, you're getting 4, whereas meiosis only gives you 2. 20, the result of meiosis is, oh, did I say that wrong? Mitosis gives you 2, sorry. The result of meiosis is 4 sex cells, which gave you the answer to the one before that. Each with strands of DNA from crossing over, genetically identical. Well, if we were making sex cells, they're definitely not genetically identical. That's, again, why you and your brothers and sisters are different. Do they each have half the original number of chromosomes? Yep, we've seen that in previous questions. And do they have complete copies of the chromosomes? No. So they do have actually 2 of these strands of DNA from crossing over, and they have C, half the number of chromosomes. All right, guys, hope that helps. Bye.